Part of one of the things that my partner David Danto will be joining us in about 8 minutes to take you through the technology, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the framework of what we thought about in creating this fellowship. We used to have to go to media, and I figured we'd have a broad cross-section of ages in this room. So those of you who are Gen X and beyond, you remember when we had to be in front of our TV set at 8 o'clock on Thursday night to see our favorite TV show or hope to see it in summer reruns. We still bought a newspaper because that's the way we got our news. And Saturday night was a trip to Blockbuster Video. And discovery meant looking through the bins for a movie because all the hits had already been rented. Those of you who, the 10 years before the smartphone, we advanced. TiVo allowed you to DVR your television program, so it took care of that. We started going to news aggregators like Yahoo News and Google News, and we made the transition from paying $20 plus for a record album to $1.99 a song. That's when we went to media. Now media is coming to us. Pandora and Spotify pick our music, Netflix picks our movies and TV shows, and Facebook and Twitter define our news feed based on who we follow or who our friends are. And the system is being disintermediated again. This is my Congressman, Jim Himes. He's big on social media. He's on the House Intelligence Committee and sits right next to the chairman. If the House and Senate Intelligence Committees are going to get a lot of FaceTime on television in the next 6 months. But he sends out a Facebook alert telling me that he's going to be on Rachel Maddow that night. And the next day, he posts his presentation or his appearance with Rachel Maddow. I didn't have to go to MSNBC. He sent it to me directly. Our strategy is pretty simple. We want to simplify the broadcasting of town meetings and use social media to engage citizens on local issues. There's a problem at the local level. In non-presidential year elections, less than 20% vote. Matt told me yesterday 11% voted Tuesday in the Columbia election. That's a big problem. And why don't they vote? They say they don't have enough information about the candidates, they don't know enough about local issues, and there's just not enough news coverage of local issues. So with local newspapers going away or downsizing, where are they going to get the content from? On the national level, there's certainly no problem in filling our Facebook feeds with news from the right or the left. But where is local content going to come from? Well, it turns out it's right in front of us. There are thousands of public meetings being broadcast live and recorded by thousands of volunteers at cities and towns across the country. But no one really sees it because, again, media's got to come to us. We don't go to media anymore. For instance, the Columbia Board of Education website is robust, full of video, and give them credit, they have a Facebook page. Now, there are 119,000 people who live in Columbia. There are more than 18,000 public school students. How many Facebook followers do you think the Columbia Board of Education site has? 160, less than 1%. So we're going to have 3 solutions for our that we're going to suggest to local media to use. Our most basic is the citizen or local journalist being able to go to a meeting with the smartphone, a tripod, and a Facebook account. Jim Himes did a series of town meetings like most members of Congress did. And he had 1,000 people on a Saturday afternoon at 3:45. So I wanted to test how it went. So I started broadcasting his town meeting live. And in less than 3 minutes, I had more than 100 followers. And so our solution, cities and towns care about their public meetings, and that's our focus. But their heart and soul is their high school sports. The interesting thing about that game, there's no camera operator. There's no one operating a joystick from some other location. This is all done by software. It's a company called Strivecast.tv, and they've already got soccer and basketball done. So this opens up for cities and towns, and as Matt, Matt Doolin, who is helping us at the Missourian with 2 students in defining our social media strategy that's going to accompany this report, the chance to be able to broadcast local high school games beyond football, or make it easier to do basketball is going to make a big change. I want to introduce my partner now, David Danto, and there he is. David and I have worked together for years, and he's been working with leading video conferencing providers to introduce products for the next generation where all the products are totally automated. The basketball game, you have to follow motion to get software to follow motion. The hard part is not the video, but the audio when 4 city council members are all trying to talk at the same time. And how do you automate that process with software? So with that, I'll turn it over to David.
Thanks very much for letting you guys join you remotely. Hopefully you can see and hear me okay. I can't see you, but I'll take it for granted that everything's okay if somebody says go.
Go.
There you go. Okay, so let me share a couple of things with you very briefly to expand on what my colleague Mike was talking about. I put this onto my presentation today because this was in the newspaper this morning. And of course I read it online, but I say newspaper figuratively. In that this is the object for what it is that we're trying to do. In that there are no more local newspapers. Where I'm speaking to you from in central New Jersey, my local town newspaper item is now covering 9 different communities instead of ours anymore, and I don't think there's anything local in it other than the cover sheet. So we wanted to figure out how to approach this concept of community journalism in a way that would be more cost effective and look at the technologies that then are available that weren't necessarily available when the entire modality came about. So one of the things that we looked at was this thing. I'm sure all of you have or are holding or know of smartphones, and if you hold it up and try and take a picture of somebody, the device knows where the people are. It's smart enough. It doesn't need you to tell them. And in many cases where there's a little bit of additional technology, it knows the names of the people that are talking and how they're speaking. So what we did was we took this technology, which isn't necessarily how community journalism has worked in the past. It's worked from a broadcast perspective. We took this kind of perspective and brought it over to look at what would happen. And we realized that a lot of systems are coming onto the market right now that are providing what's called intelligent framing. They can either do it simply by looking at the picture and saying, you know what, I see there are 2 people in the room, let me make a nicer shot. Or they do it by following who's talking. And we wanted to try and come up with the ability to provide this technology to local communities, because most communities can raise the funding to put in the technology that's required to provide this live or streamed coverage of their meetings, but they don't really have the ability to consistently man them with technicians and with operators. That was what we found out was the biggest issue. So let me share a video with you very briefly of a product that's available. It's the one that Mike has in front of you right now. We've done a little bit of show and tell, but just take a look at how this works. This is an off-the-shelf camera that costs about $1,000 at this point. Without anything that we had to do with it, it has the ability automatically to be able to produce a good quality image of whoever happens to be in the room simply by recognizing how many faces are there and how many people have walked in. And again, you could take a camera like this and plug it into a PC or into a video conference system or into anything else that you might happen to have, and it'll automatically do the framing for you. No more operators, no more joysticks. So we then thought, well, what would happen if we took this kind of technology and put it into a typical speaking arrangement, you know, a dais or a top table or a location where you have 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 people that are all trying to speak over each other at a community meeting. Well, we needed more than just facial recognition. We needed the ability to be able to hear who was talking. And that's the rig that Mike has in front of you right now. Again, very inexpensive, you know, probably in the nature of a couple of $1,000s to be able to set this up one time. Here's a demo of a prototype that we did of the system, of the one that you're looking at right now in November. And you can take a look, and I'm not going to have to play the entire piece for you, but you can see it has the ability, and again, forgive me because this was a prototype and a beta and it's a little tilted, and I was on the panel as was Mike, but as we start to speak, the camera moves around, listens to who's talking, and makes adjustments to pick up whoever it is that's speaking. We now have the system to the point where we're comfortable with it and it's perfected, and it gives the capability to be able to place these semi-permanently. Doesn't have to be permanently installed on a wall, but semi-permanently, and you would be able to automatically record or stream the events that are taking place in the meeting. Well, in order to get to the next phase of doing this, this is what we consider to be our next step up, or at least temporarily what we're referring to as our silver solution. The next step up would be, what do we do if the room itself doesn't have a way to identify who's talking because everybody's speaking into a microphone, and those sounds are coming simply out of the speakers that are coming off the wall or in the ceiling. Well, we've worked with a couple of manufacturers in the industry to develop a system that would take any room with up to 16 microphones and a PA system, intercept those microphones, and then provide a camera, and Mike has that camera there as well, to show you. We could take each microphone, associate it with a preset on the camera, and the camera will automatically take a picture of who's talking. And we can provide in the logic, if 2 people are talking or 3 people are talking, the camera will simply move out and go wide until there's the opportunity to identify a person who's talking again. So by removing the need for people to do anything other than start and stop the system, we've removed a majority of the ongoing cost, and we'll be able to make these technologies available to local communities at a very inexpensive price point. Mike, back to you, unless there are any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you very much, David. David's tan, so he just got back from Bimini, so the weather was good in the Caribbean. Yep. For the releasing, we're looking at July at the Academy, the Alliance for Community Media convention in Minneapolis in July, and then there are 2 large trade organizations that deal with cities and towns, and we're going to release in July, and then the other one is in September, and frankly, the technology is evolving by the week. So what we show you today could be different in July. It's moving that quickly in terms of improvements in the software.
Hi. So we have a student team that's been doing the grassroots effort that really is what's most necessary to get something like this working. And that started out with our outreach team partnering with the newspaper's Public Life Beat, which covers all local government, all aspects of local government here. And working through them, they identified which public meetings would benefit the most from this kind of approach. Because as Mike pointed out, the Columbia Public Schools already does a good job live streaming, providing access to its meetings. The Columbia City Council also does a fabulous job. You can find minutes, agendas, video content if you are so interested. But we identified that the county, Boone County, doesn't have any government video or documents readily available. You could call and ask for them if you're a reporter or a citizen. But getting to that process of just identifying that has taken a couple of months. And some things we've done is we've polled Missourian readers, what kind of meetings are you interested in following, or what issues are you interested in learning more about? And that's helped us narrow down, a list of, a government has easily hundreds of committees that have hundreds of meetings that are open. So narrowing these lists of potential targets has actually been kind of a bigger task than I thought it might have been. And so the next step is we're going to identify 1 or 2 county-wide meetings that need to be streamed, and then using probably just an iPhone or an iPad, just use Facebook Live to stream those meetings to Missourian readers. So that's the next phase.
But David's cartoon, it's hard to read a cartoon when you're in the middle of a conference, but if there's no newspapers there, I think I'll run for mayor. This solution is for not only cities and towns, but also local media outlets who haven't had the resource, may not have as many as reporters as they used to have, but a lot of content that is sitting there that properly mined with transcripts and search and creating video highlights could provide a lot of content for a local media outlet who wants to let people know what's happening on their property taxes in their schools and their public works. And there's just, if the content can be mined, there's a lot there that will help inform citizens. Thank you very much.